In this video, we explore the tragic and unsettling story of Rebecca Schaeffer, a rising star whose life was cut short by a dangerous fan obsession. It was a warm and quiet night in LA. The town was usually very busy, but for once everything was calm and quiet. But this silence and peace couldn't last forever. A loud banging sound soon woke up someone in Los Angeles. He was confused because it was late at night, so he got up and went outside to see what was going on. He turned to see what the noise was coming from and saw a young woman fall to the ground. The man was running away, which he saw when he looked far away. What the man had just seen made him stand still. As the woman looked at the guy running, she could only say one word: "Why?" Before we jump into today's case, I'm curious where you are watching from. Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy true crime content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an upload. Now, let's get into it. Rebecca Schaeffer came to New York to try to become a supermodel, but fate had something else planned for her. For Rebecca, it all changed after she did a cover shoot for 17 magazine. She stopped modeling and became the star of the hit comedy show My Sister Sam. Rebecca's life had been going so fast that it made her head spin, but she knew she was on the right track and was embracing everything the Hollywood scene had to offer. Things got better from here on out. After getting small parts in TV films, feature films, and TV shows, Rebecca was well on her way to becoming a star. With fame came a huge number of fans and followers. Many people wrote to Rebecca and wanted her autograph or a reaction to one of the many fan letters she got. Rebecca loved writing back to her fans. Rebecca was successful because of their love and support, along with her drive and hard work. She loved giving back to them, even if it was just a small thing. Everyone wrote letters to Rebecca. She smiled and felt better after reading most of them, but some weren't so nice. That's what happens when someone is well known, which is sad. They get recognition from many sources, not just cameras, bright lights, and expensive dresses on a red carpet. Rebecca was about to learn this the hard way. There was someone out there who was crazy about Rebecca, but she had no idea how strong this passion was. No one believed, not even in their wildest hopes, that Rebecca's stalker would go even further and visit her place of work or find out where she lived, but they did. A loud banging sound woke up a quiet and peaceful Los Angeles neighborhood on July 18, 1989. An interested neighbor went outside to see what was going on. As he looked in the direction where the noise was coming from, he stopped dead in his tracks. A woman who looked like she was hurt and in pain was lying on the ground near the door to an apartment building. Behind them, someone in a yellow shirt could be seen running away. The young woman was still breathing, and one word could be heard over and over: "Why?" Their neighbor called the police, and the young woman was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in an ambulance within minutes. Every minute, her situation was getting worse. The doctors didn't think things were going to get better because she was losing awareness. Shockingly, the woman would die 30 minutes after getting to the hospital from a serious chest injury. Who was the woman, though? Well, Rebecca Schaeffer was a young, up-and-coming actor who was 21 years old at the time of her death. She had just gotten a big part in The Godfather 3, and she was thrilled about it. It was likely to be her big break. She really wanted to play this part, but someone with bad motives kept her from getting it. Suddenly, her whole life as a promising actress was ripped apart. Nobody would have thought that such a beautiful and lively young performer would die so soon. Her family thought it was just yesterday that she was in nappies and talking to her parents, Dana and Benson, about things they didn't understand. Dana worked as a writer at Willamette University, and Benson was a child psychologist. Her family had been living in Eugene, Oregon. They only had one child together, Rebecca. The Schaeffers were a religious Jewish family, and everyone was very close. The family finally moved to Portland, where Rebecca went to school and fell in love with modeling and then acting. Rebecca came from a Jewish family and wanted to be a rabbi at first, but she had always liked playing. But fate had other plans for her, and she didn't realize she wanted to be an artist until she was 14. Several modeling companies were interested in her when she was in high school. Rebecca felt like her life had finally come to an end when she joined this group. Sarah wished she could be famous. She liked both acting and modeling, and she started her career by doing a few jobs for department store catalogs and ads. She also got a few extra parts in a TV movie, But because Rebecca lived in Oregon, she couldn't find out what she was good at or take advantage of bigger chances. Rebecca made the choice to move to New York City when she was 16 years old, and she worked for Elite Model Management, an agency for budding models. Rebecca spent the summer in New York and then chose to stay to follow her dream of becoming a model. Her parents agreed with her choice. For Rebecca's own happiness and to do what she chose, they let her stay in New York, grow, and get better at what she did. Rebecca was in a big city with lots of options, but she didn't know anyone there and didn't have much money. Anyway, she lived in a small New York flat with a bunch of other wannabe models, and things were going pretty well, given everything. Rebecca made a lot of friends who were all going through the same thing she was. It turned out that she loved living in New York, even the bad things about living in such a big city. Rebecca was really looking forward to getting that one job that would make her famous, even though she had to go to a lot of auditions and have a lot of shoots. The hardest part was having to wait. The only trouble was that she had no idea that her life would be taken away right after she got that big part. When Rebecca moved to New York, she got her start as an actress. In late 1984, she played Annie Barnes on the ABC show One Life to Live. To be honest, Rebecca wasn't really interested in acting at the time. She just wanted to start modeling. But that wasn't so easy to do, because Rebecca wasn't very tall. Even though she was smart and pretty, Becky was 5 feet 7 inches tall, but she couldn't get many modeling jobs because people thought she was too small. That's 3 inches taller than me, so 5 feet 7 seems like a pretty normal size to me. But I guess modeling is a weird business, because she was turned down for job after gig. Rebecca moved to Japan in 1985, a little less than a year after working on One Life to Live. She made this choice because she felt let down when she didn't get her dream job. She hoped that she could get modeling jobs in Japan, but that also didn't happen. This is when she had an insight. Rebecca liked acting, and since she couldn't become a model for reasons out of her control, she gave up on her dream of becoming a model and focused on acting instead. Rebecca loved being on stage and playing. She was born to put on a show. It was in her blood from the start. She put on shows and acts for her family and friends that made everyone laugh. She had made up her mind then. She was going to return to New York to work on becoming an actor. At this point, her work really took off, and people began to pay attention to her. For some of those people, though, she caught their eye for the wrong reasons. Rebecca got a few parts after moving back to New York City in 1986, but she was still having a terrible time. It turned out that she had to work as a waitress while she looked for new jobs. It was clear that her path to becoming an actress was not easy, but she never let her worries or fears stop her. She was about to go on that picture shoot that would change her life forever. Rebecca was asked to be on the cover of 17 magazine out of the blue. For her and other Oregon girls her age, being on the cover of 17 was like being on the cover of Vogue. This front cover caught the attention of many TV makers because it was such a big deal. Once the picture shoot was over, producers called Rebecca's agency to ask her to come in for an audition for My Sister Sam, a very popular comedy show at the time. Becky thought this phone call was a dream. It made her very happy to have the chance. She was trying out for the part of Patty Russell, a teenage girl who goes to San Francisco to live with her older sister after their parents die. It was planned that Rebecca would play Pam's younger sister, since Pam is one of the main characters in the show. Rebecca did her best at the interview. Her hard work finally paid off one day when she got the good news after days of waiting. Becky got Patty's part, and the rest is history. It was one of the top 25 comedies of all time, and a big hit. After this series ended, Rebecca was quickly asked to be in a number of other films. In a very short time, she had become a big star. But what most people don't think about when they want to be models, artists, influencers, or anything else is that you will have a lot of fans who love you, but they will also want a little more from you than you can really give them. Fans who really care are great. They keep the machine running and lift your feelings when you start to doubt yourself. But some fans are too devoted. They will do anything to get your attention, and some of them are even ready to kill for it. She used to get a lot of letters and fan mail. 90% of them were helpful and nice, but some of them were very scary. Since it was the 1980s, there were no social media sites like Instagram or Facebook where people could follow celebrities, leave comments on their photos, and do other cool things. Fans sent letters, sent fan mail, and put up pictures all the time. If you liked a band, an actor or actress, or a reality TV star, you would have posters, souvenirs, and other small items all over your room. The fans would also write to their favorite artists and celebrities, and sometimes the stars would answer. In fact, this is what one fan did. She got letters from him. However, they were not dangerous in any way. They really did look like letters from a huge fan. He would talk and talk about how talented, beautiful, and amazing Rebecca was. He would also say that he had seen all of her films and did other usual fan stuff. The letter was completely innocent and only said, "I'm a huge fan of yours." But Rebecca had no idea that something else was going on beneath the surface of this normal fan behavior. It turned out that these letters came from a kid called Robert John Bardo. Robert was the 7th child and the youngest, but Robert's life was never perfect. His dad was a crazy drinker who was mean to his wife and kids. Robert came from a very broken home. His siblings, parents, and other family members all him. As you might expect, some of the kids became angry very young after seeing their dad. Not Robert, though. It was more likely that he was the one being abused. His brothers always put him down, and he was pretty much their punching bag. Robert was put in a foster home when he became insecure and said he was going to hurt himself because his family was abusing him all the time. People who knew Robert said that his family was unstable and full of problems. Everything in the house was shaky, and none of the kids were cared for at all. Robert, on the other hand, became the family pushover because he was the youngest. Anyone who wanted to calm down or get rid of their rage would go after Robert. One person said Robert was emotionally handicapped as a child because of this. He just couldn't control his anger, which is sad to hear. Soon, dysfunctional behavior spread to Robert as well, and when he was a teenager, he also turned violent and angry. This is a common example of generational trauma, which happens when a parent goes through trauma and then passes it on to their children, who then go through the same trauma, and so on. Robert was sadly stuck in the same cycle that a lot of us are. You can break this cycle these days if you are determined and go to therapy. It's not easy, but help is available almost everywhere. But Robert wasn't able to do that. He didn't get help for his mental health problems because, well, that was back in the 1970s and 1980s, when people weren't as aware of the problems and how important it is to get help as they are now. Folks used to be left to handle their own mental health issues when they were having trouble. They didn't get much help from anyone. While there were doctors around who would give people pills, we didn't have the right schooling or knowledge to know what to do with people who were mentally ill back then. People with mental illness were made to look bad, as if they had a sickness that spread easily. These people kept quiet about it more than anything else, which is so sad. It turned out that Robert's family had a history of mental health problems as well. Soon after this was made public, Robert was labeled with bipolar disorder. He had a lot of problems in his life, so it shouldn't be a surprise that he got in trouble with the law a few times. He was arrested 3 times for violence, disorderly behavior, being inappropriate in public, and other offenses. While we don't know all the specifics, the fact that he was only a teenager when he was out threatening and scaring people is still very scary. Even Robert's neighbors were afraid of him because he was so angry all the time. Also, it wasn't a surprise that Robert went to a mental hospital when he was 15 and dropped out of high school after getting out. Even though he was smart, Robert got straight A's in all of his classes in school and has done so for most of his life. He had a lot of different jobs to make ends meet. At one point, he even cleaned and cooked at a Jack-in-the-Box restaurant. Robert was smart, but he had dropped out of school, so these were the only jobs he could get. No one else would hire him at that time. Well, around the same time, Robert became obsessed with a famous person while he was working as a cleaner. It was Samantha Smith, and she was a child actress and peace campaigner. Samantha was only 10 years old when she wrote a letter to Yuri Andropov, who had just been named General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. In the letter, she told him how much she hated war and begged everyone to stop fighting. She became well known for her part in the anti-war protests during the Cold War, and she was given many titles, such as America's Youngest Ambassador. Because she was so well known, she went into acting and did peace work in Japan. She played the lead role in a Disney Channel special called Samantha Smith Goes to Washington and in a TV show called Lime Street. Having said that, she was pretty well known. Her letter to General Secretary Yuri was printed in the Soviet government-run newspaper Pravda, and all of the newspapers talked about her work for peace on the front page. Robert Bardo became crazy about her because of it, and so did a lot of other people. Now, Robert was in Tucson, Arizona, and Samantha was in Maine. But Robert was so obsessed with meeting Samantha that he went to Maine to try to find her. He tried again after getting a ticket from the cops, but failed. Even though this didn't stop him, he started writing letters to Samantha. We don't know what was in the letters, or if they ever got to Samantha, but the fact that Robert was so interested in a 13-year-old girl is still disturbing, especially since he was now an adult. He only stopped being obsessed when Samantha died, which was sad. Samantha and her dad were on a Beechcraft 99 when it fell while landing and hit some trees on August 25, 1985. All of the passengers and crew died in the crash, including Samantha and her dad. When Robert heard this news, he was very sad, but it also meant that he no longer had anyone to worry over. That's when he started to think about Rebecca Schaefer. At the time, Robert was 19 years old and began writing letters to Rebecca. I know what you're thinking. His letters were probably creepy, upsetting, sexual, and gross. But that wasn't the case. His letters were very kind, and Rebecca didn't notice anything that made her feel bad. It made me feel better, and Robert only said nice things about her, like any fan would. Becky replied by writing that his letter was one of the nicest she had ever gotten, but this was a bad idea. Rebecca didn't know that after this answer, Robert John Bardo would become crazy about her, and things would go badly, because some people can take fake kindness the wrong way and believe it's their birthright to be liked by people they like, even though this isn't true at all. Rebecca really only wrote back to be nice. In fact, she had probably told a lot of her friends the same thing before, but Robert couldn't see this. He thought Rebecca wanted to keep in touch with him in some way, maybe to become long-term friends or a life partner he didn't know about. He knew he wanted Rebecca, and he wanted her more than ever. He was set on getting her and would not let anyone else have her. Robert was interested in Rebecca's answer, but she didn't know it. He picked up with her right where he left off with Samantha. He kept watching all of Rebecca's films and TV shows. Things that follow might make you feel weird, but that's okay. He pretty much turned into a superfan. Robert thought it would be a good idea to go to the place where Rebecca worked this time. The lot was owned by Warner Brothers and was in Burbank, Los Angeles. Robert found out where Rebecca worked, and it just so happened that she was working on the set of My Sister Sam at the time. Anyway, I don't understand how Robert could have thought that he could just walk into Warner Brothers like it was a hotel and ask for Rebecca. She would supposedly drop everything and come hang out with him. I'm not sure if Robert really didn't understand how a job works or if this had something to do with his mental illness, but it was clear that Robert didn't get it. Robert wasn't even able to get inside the building before he was stopped by security. Security said Robert came in with flowers and a toy bear for Rebecca. He just wanted to give them to her and maybe talk to her for 5 minutes. That clearly didn't happen, though, since he was led out of the lot. He was told to leave, which he did, thank goodness. It was Warner Brothers' policy that actors and actresses weren't told about unwanted guests so as not to bother them or get in the way of their work. Rebecca didn't even know that her mystery pen pal was being stopped by security on the other side of the door. It would be too much of an exaggeration to call Robert Rebecca's pen pal, since the two had only written one letter to each other, but Robert thought they had been talking for years. He thought that as a famous person, Rebecca should drop everything and meet her fan from Tucson. He went back to the same place, even though he didn't get to meet Rebecca. There you have it. Robert really wanted to meet Rebecca and was ready to do anything to make that happen. Even though he didn't get the chance the first time, he brought a gun the next time he came back. Things got worse very quickly with Robert. He came back again, but this time he was armed because the first time he was turned away. Robert was asked to leave again, though, so he wasn't able to go in this time either. Thank goodness he left without a fight this time. Robert never fought back. If security stopped him from meeting the people who were making him crazy, he wouldn't try to break in or make a scene. As he left, he would stay quiet and collected, and there would be no fight at all. At the same time, this is both really strange and scary because stalkers are known to be very stubborn and use every trick in the book to get their point across. But that wasn't the case with Robert. Rather, he followed security rules. This may have been why he never really got into trouble here, and why security didn't see 19-year-old Robert as a danger. Warner Brothers Security really thought Robert was a nice, lonely fan who just wanted to see his favorite star in real life once. But the truth is that a lot of people have been very harsh on Warner Brothers Security, saying they should have done something when this guy kept coming back and asking to meet Rebecca. I don't think they knew how dangerous this guy really was, though. He did, in fact, have a gun. But from what I understand, he didn't charge in through the front door, brandishing a knife for everyone to see. To be honest, they probably didn't know him from any other fan, and they might not have even noticed that he showed up twice. He looked a lot like every other fan who had come in. It's easy to see why people are upset about security. It would have been great if they did something, but it looks like they didn't really know. It's even scarier to think that Rebecca didn't know that Robert the fan, who wrote her a touching letter, was outside her workplace with a gun. Rebecca had no idea that she might have been in high danger if she ran into Robert that day. Another thing Rebecca didn't know was how quickly Robert was going off track. Robert was getting more and more stubborn and violent, and Rebecca didn't know anything about it. That doesn't make him any less of a threat to her. It only took one wrong click for everything to fall apart. But before things got worse and led to what happened, something very strange happened, something you don't usually hear in these kinds of situations. Robert's love for Rebecca also reached its end at some point. He was still interested in her, but not as much. Why? That's because he had found other people to kill. They always do. Robert saw a lot of women he could like now that he had been in the film and music worlds. Some of those women were great, like Madonna. We still don't know how much Robert stalks other famous people. I think he tried to visit the homes of these famous people but was turned away because of security. He then wrote messages, watched their films, or listened to their music to try to make plans to meet the women again. It looks like this whole thing was just another repeat for Robert. This guy stalks people all the time. He tried to be, but he wasn't able to get these women to like him or stop being scared of him with his pranks. But soon after, Robert went back to Rebecca, and this time, their passion was even stronger. It all started when he watched Rebecca's most recent movie. Robert became deeply in love with Rebecca because she seemed innocent, which is something you should know about him and why he was so obsessed with her. Sincerely, Rebecca was often praised by other actors, movie directors, and her teachers for having a very fresh and innocent air about her. This is exactly what caught Robert's attention too. In this case, though, Robert's addiction would get even worse and angrier. Robert saw her movie scenes from The Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, which came out in 1989. Rebecca had a small part in that movie. However, when Robert got to a scene where Rebecca was making out with another actor, it was like a light went off in his head. Even though the scene wasn't very exciting, it broke Robert's innocent idea of Rebecca, and he was never the same after that. It got really bad between him and Rebecca, and he started calling her horrible names. This was the point where it was clear that Robert had lost all touch with reality. It was hard for him to tell the difference between the real person and the role they play on screen. He thought of Rebecca as his property, and now she was cheating on him. At about the same time, Rebecca moved out of the Dauber house and into her own West Hollywood flat. Her neighborhood was safe, and there were apartment buildings and homes nearby where a lot of important people also lived. Rebecca had never lived alone before, but she thought it was safer because she was in an apartment complex instead of a house, and no one, not even nosy reporters or tourists, could find out her apartment number. After Rebecca worked on My Sister Sam, she got an offer that made her feel like she could reach the stars. She was asked to try out for the part of Mary Corleone in The Godfather 3, which was set to come out in 1990. Now, Rebecca really liked The Godfather 3. It was already a huge movie series, and a lot of big names were in it. These films had all the big names you can think of. Now, Rebecca's name was going to be added to that list too. According to her, the movie script would be sent to her by carrier in July 1989. She was pretty excited to get her hands on it. She was excited about it because she thought that getting that part would be the last step in becoming a worldwide star. A meeting with the director was planned for the same day she got the script so they could talk about her part. That could not happen, though, because Rebecca would never get that script because her career would end just the day she was meant to get it. It was important to Robert that he found Rebecca and made her pay for what she had done to him. Getting close to another actor in a made-up movie, Robert thought this was war. Robert did everything he could to find Rebecca and tell her what he thought. How did he do that? He did pay a detective service in Tucson to find out where Rebecca lived in West Hollywood. Take that in. His payment to the agent was $250. I wish I could say he was scammed, but he wasn't. The service was able to look through California's DMV records and find Rebecca's home address. They then gave it to Robert. Yes, you heard that right. That private and sensitive information like Rebecca's home address could be made public for just $250 is so scary. The thought that anyone can get information from anywhere is crazy and scary. Anyway, right away after that, Robert got a gun with the help of his brother. The gun was hidden in a shopping bag, which he then hid in either his luggage or his clothing. He then took a Greyhound bus from Arizona to West Hollywood, where Rebecca lived. On the terrible July 18, 1989, Robert got to Los Angeles and asked people he knew if Rebecca lived there. I can't believe that this behavior wasn't seen as odd by other people. The guy really was just knocking on doors to find Rebecca. Based on this alone, it looked like the information Robert was given only took him to the apartment block. The detective agency didn't seem to know her exact room number, but he found it soon enough. Robert rang Rebecca's doorbell in the lobby when he got to her building. An excited Rebecca ran to the lobby on the ground floor. If you remember, Rebecca was waiting for the script for her part in The Godfather 3 to arrive. She also had a meeting with the director right after getting the script. That's why, when she heard the ring, she thought it must have been the director or the delivery person. But Rebecca was shocked when she saw a young man standing there by himself, without a script in his hand. Though Rebecca had never seen Robert's face before, so it was clear that she was guarding herself. Robert says that he showed Rebecca the letter and an autograph she had sent him in response. That's when Rebecca may have realized that this guy was a bit of a creep. He was a fan, but he still found out where she lived and was now standing in front of her house like he hadn't done anything wrong. Robert says Rebecca greeted him nicely, but then she told him very sternly not to come see her again. She then said goodbye and left, going back up to her flat. Also, you might be surprised to learn that Robert left. Remember that Robert never fought for anything. He only left when she told him to. The guy went to all that trouble to find her home address. And after a short meeting that I'm sure made Rebecca feel very uneasy, he just left. But this was still a long way from being over. Robert got breakfast at a nearby diner and then came back to stand in front of Rebecca's building an hour later. When Robert rang the bell and Rebecca came back into the hallway, she had a cold look on her face, which made sense. Rebecca had asked Robert why he was back at her house and told him to hurry up because she didn't have much time left. It looks like this is what made Robert lose his temper. He said it was a callous thing to say to a fan. This was Robert's last chance to change his mind. Robert took the gun out of a shopping bag and shot at Rebecca from a bare distance, hitting her in the chest with a single bullet. He was heartbroken that Rebecca wasn't interested. At this point, the neighbors heard the noise and went outside to see what was going on. When they got there, they saw Rebecca lying on the ground. She could only say, "Why?" before Robert turned around and ran away, but not before the neighbor of Rebecca saw him. Rebecca was lying on the ground when the neighbor saw a guy in a yellow shirt running away. That man was Robert John Bardo. Rebecca had been killed by him, and she had died within 30 minutes of the attack, whether he knew it or not. Rebecca was an actress who worked hard and was humble. She was about to have a great career when she was killed because she wouldn't give in to a stalker. If Robert thought he could get away with killing Rebecca, he was wrong. He was arrested in Tucson just one day after Rebecca was attacked and tragically killed. How? Well, several people told the police that he was running randomly through traffic on Interstate 10. He was crying his eyes out when he was found hunched over the hood of an unknown car. Investigators thought Robert was thinking about running right into oncoming traffic to kill himself. Fortunately, though, he failed. As soon as he was arrested, he admitted to killing Rebecca Schaefer, who was 21 years old. He admitted to the crime but pleaded not guilty to the charges, and he was being held until his sentencing. Robert's lawyers chose to use the fact that he was mentally ill as an excuse to get him out of jail. His bipolar condition and schizophrenia made them say that he wasn't in the right frame of mind when he killed Rebecca and that he wasn't aware of what he was doing. The prosecutors really had to work hard on this one. It looked like the defense was going to go for the insanity plea, which would mean Robert wasn't guilty. They had to show that Robert had planned everything and persuade the jury that he was an obsessed man after a famous person. He had bipolar illness and came from a family that didn't work well together. The defense only needed to sway the judges in the right direction, and they were done. We won the case. But nobody knew that the government had some cold, hard proof against this man. When Robert left his home in Tucson, Arizona that day, he meant to kill Rebecca. He was fully aware of what he was doing. We know this. His gun was already in a shopping bag, and with him. What was the point of Robert's defense if the plan to kill Rebecca at the last minute? Why did he bring his gun and hide it in a bag? Robert was sure that he had to kill Rebecca for some reason. That's why he went to a private detective service and paid them to find Rebecca's address. He went from flat to flat in West Hollywood and asked people if Rebecca really lived there. There was nothing Rebecca did that would have made Robert go crazy, other than being scared, which is a normal response. Even worse, Robert was carrying a copy of The Catcher in the Rye when he killed Rebecca. As he ran away, he threw the book off a roof near her house. There were a lot of similarities between Robert's acts and those of Mark David Chapman, who killed John Lennon in 1980 with the same book. Also, do you remember how Robert hired a spy to find out where Rebecca lived? Private detective was hired by Arthur Richard Jackson to find the home of actress Teresa Saldana, where he viciously attacked her. This is thought to have influenced him. Besides that, he went back to Rebecca's house after having breakfast at a cafe. He might have known how to stop at that point. He didn't, though, so Robert couldn't always hide behind his mental illness, could he? Robert was finally found guilty of killing Rebecca Schaefer in the first degree and was given a life term without the chance of parole. And as luck would have it, Robert was attacked on his way to breakfast in the highest security unit of Mule Creek State Prison on July 27, 2007. 2 guns made by prisoners were found at the scene of the crime. Robert was taken to UC Davis Medical Center for treatment. It turned out that he was attacked by another murderer who is serving an 82-year to life term at Mule Creek State Prison. Robert was lucky enough to fully recover, but he still had to serve the rest of his term. Robert was interviewed and videotaped while he was in jail. He went into great detail about how he killed Rebecca, and there were a lot of strange details in her case that sounded a lot like other murders. It looks like Rebecca's murder was influenced by a few other well-known murders in a strange way. It starts with the private investigator he paid to look up Rebecca's home address in the California DMV records. When investigators heard this information, it reminded them of something that had happened before Rebecca was killed. It happened when someone was watching another famous person. Well, there was a star named Teresa Saldana. She played the lead role in the TV show The Comish in 1990 and in films such as Raging Bull and Defiance. Teresa caught the attention of Arthur Richard Jackson, a drifter who was 46 years old and from Aberdeen, Scotland. He became deeply interested in her, and his interest quickly turned dark. He had some sick reason for wanting to hurt Teresa. He just wanted to do it, so there was no real reason for it. This man came all the way from Scotland to attack Teresa in the U.S., but not before he found out where she lived. Okay, so Arthur did hire a private investigator, and that person found Teresa's mom's home phone number. Then Arthur called Teresa's mom and said he was an assistant to a famous director. He asked for Teresa's home address, and her mom gave it to him. She had no reason to think Arthur was bad. It sounds like his story was true. The next morning, March 15, 1982, Arthur stood in front of Teresa's second-floor West Hollywood apartment. When Teresa opened the door, Arthur attacked her in a violent and yelling fit. Teresa was badly hurt, but she was saved when a delivery man stepped in, restrained Arthur, and called the police. Arthur was stopped right away, and Teresa was taken to the hospital with 10 major wounds. She had to spend 4 months in the hospital because her wounds were so bad. She was lucky enough to get better, but she was never the same after that. Because of this, Teresa joined organizations to stop stalking, and as an activist, she became well known. Meanwhile, Arthur was sentenced to 14 years in prison for killing Teresa. While he was there, he made threats against her and the delivery guy, which is even scarier. Luckily, he was sent back to the UK to face other charges that were not connected to this one. In 2004, not long after this, he died of heart failure. Teresa's attack happened almost 7 years before Rebecca's, but Robert must have taken notes from Arthur because he got Rebecca's home address from a private investigator business before he carried out his evil plan. It looks like this was a thing. I find it very scary to think that private investigation companies had the tools to leak such private information, but that wasn't the only thing that made Robert want to do it. Remember that the cops also found a red paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye on a roof not far from where Rebecca was found. People thought Robert had thrown the book near the crime scene before running away. This information also made sense because someone else was seen with the same book when they killed someone. Mark David Chapman was the name of the person who stalked and killed John Lennon of the Beatles. Mark was envious of John's fancy life and had strong feelings about some of his songs and political views. His plan finally came together on December 8, 1980, after he had been following John around for a long time. People saw him hanging out near John's flat in Dakota, which is on Manhattan's Upper West Side. It's crazy that Mark talked to John at one point. He came up to John with a copy of his record and gave it to John to sign. According to witnesses, Mark didn't say anything to John. In fact, a photographer caught the two of them signing Mark's copy of the record. He stayed around for a while and looked at John. However, things went crazy a few hours later when John and his wife at the time, Yoko, got to their Dakota flat and went to the front door. Mark saw this as his chance. People around him heard 5 loud bangs as he pulled out the gun he had been carrying the whole time. When John hit the ground, that was it. There are a lot of strange parallels here. Even though Robert probably didn't just hang out after Rebecca was killed, there are a lot of similarities between the two cases that make you wonder, was Robert's interest in and murder of Rebecca unique, or did he get ideas from other killers? According to my point of view, the fact that he was also interested in several other actresses makes you wonder, was the incident with Rebecca a one-time thing, or was he stalking different celebrities, waiting for the right moment to strike so that he could, in a sick way, repeat the crimes of his heroes, Mark Chapman and Arthur Jackson? Before Rebecca Schaeffer, other famous people were also stalked and killed, and their deaths were also very sad and pointless. Rebecca's death changed Californian and U.S. law in a big way in the end. It is now illegal to stalk someone. It also led to the passing of rules against stalking, which were first written in 1990. Besides, the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, which was passed in 1994, stops DMVs from giving out private and sensitive information like home addresses and other things to anyone. A civil judge could also give victims a 10-year restraining order, which was much better than a weak 4-year stay-away order that stalkers could not ignore. A special police team was also set up in Los Angeles. Its job was to work with celebrity lawyers and prosecutors to make sure that everyone in Hollywood was safe. To keep things going, the cops should always take seriously any harmless attempts by the stalker, like sending love letters or constantly contacting celebrities. What they should not do is threaten or kidnap the person. Teresa Saldana, the stalking victim Robert got ideas from, was also one of the many people who pushed for the anti-stalking rule and the Driver's Privacy Protection Act of 1994, which were passed after Rebecca's death. Rebecca's case really did change Hollywood for good. Suddenly, celebrities were on edge and felt like slaves who had to watch out for each other all the time because no one knew when a crazy fan or an obsessive stalker would attack. Even though Robert Bardo is still in jail serving his time, it was found out that he draws pictures of famous people in his cell. This is a disturbing fact. He drew a picture of Rebecca Schaeffer. He also drew some very famous people like David Berkowitz and John Wayne Gacy, as well as Angelina Jolie, Michael Jackson, and Taylor Swift. Just this seems to support the idea that this wasn't a one-time passion. Robert was set on killing someone and becoming famous for it, just like his heroes, who were also killers. True or false, you can buy one of Robert's pictures online for anywhere from $25 to $100. Robert talked about Rebecca and how he felt about her in a jail interview. He said, "I couldn't stop thinking about her. I liked her, and I might have taken it too far." The word "may have" in his sentence shows that Robert hasn't changed at all after all this time. Concerning his writing, Robert sent a letter to his sister in Tennessee after being arrested. In it, he wrote, "I have an obsession with the unattainable." This is very scary to understand now that it's been said. Like with Samantha Smith, Robert's sick and twisted fascination with Rebecca didn't end when she did. Rebecca was dating movie and TV director Brad Silberling at the time of her death. Movies like Casper, City of Angels, and Land of the Lost were directed by him. After that, in 2002, he made a movie called Moonlight Mile to remember Rebecca. The movie is about a man whose fiancée is killed and how he deals with his sadness and pain over her death. In honor of Rebecca and to remember her work and success on My Sister Sam, Pam Dauber and her co-stars Joel Brooks, David Naughton, and Jenny O'Hara made a PSA for the Center to Prevent Handgun Violence. The murder of Rebecca Schaeffer shook Hollywood to its core. The case also caused a huge shift in the law, which finally took stalking seriously. However, crimes like these still happened. Selena, the famous singer, was killed by the head of her fan club in 1995. Later, an insane fan of Icelandic singer Björk followed her around and scared her. In 1996, the fan killed himself in front of cameras. Christina Grimmie was one of the most recent victims. She was a Christian woman who was acting for her fans and was innocent. She was killed by a stalker who also killed himself in 2016. Real people like you and me are not safe from this deadly fixation, which is a scary truth. Even last year, someone was stalking my wife. They texted her all day and left creepy voicemails at 4 a.m. Not one of us is safe. The fact that we don't know and will never really know the people we talk to or even meet in person is really scary and worrisome. There is only one moment and one choice that can turn a crush or affection into obsessive hate or something much worse that causes nothing but pain. Thanks for watching. If you like this tragic and unsettling story, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more true crime cases. Stay aware and stay safe. See you in the next video.